Tanks, sewers, tunnels, silos. You see them everywhere, but you probably don't give them a second thought. These are what we call confined spaces. And while they look totally ordinary, they hide some of the most sudden, most silent dangers you can find in any workplace. So let's dive into this hidden world and really understand the anatomy of these deceptive dangers.
You hear stuff like this all the time, right? It's that classic mix of confidence, of experience. But here's the thing. In the world of confined spaces, that exact attitude, that exact mindset can be absolutely fatal. It makes you think that being fast or being strong can beat an invisible hazard. The reality? Well, it's tragically different.
So why is that attitude so profoundly dangerous? Let's get right to the heart of what makes these spaces so tricky.
Okay, this number is just horrifying. 60%. Let that sink in. That's the percentage of confined space fatalities who are the would-be rescuers, the coworkers, the buddies, the people who rush in to help, just acting on pure human instinct. That quote we just saw, that's the voice of someone who could easily become part of the statistic. This isn't about being quick, it's about being prepared.
And this is a perfect, tragic example of how fast things spiral out of control. It starts with just one person. A worker's down, maybe overcome by an invisible gas, like hydrogen sulfide. A coworker sees it, and what do? They act on instinct. They go in to help, and they become the second victim. Then a third follows. It's a chain reaction, a domino effect. In just a few minutes, a single incident turns into a multi-victim tragedy.
This quote from a survivor, it's absolutely chilling. It just perfectly captures the terrifying speed of these hazards. There's often no warning, no smell, no sound, nothing. 1 second you're climbing down a ladder, the next you're waking up in a hospital. He went in to save his partner and was just lucky enough to be pulled out in time.
So, to stop these tragedies, we first have to understand what exactly we're dealing with. So let's break it down. What's the anatomy of a confined space? What turns a simple boxy area into a potential death trap?
Well, according to OSHA, it's not about how big or small it is. It's about 3 specific things. First, it's got to be big enough for you to actually get your body inside and do some work. Second, getting in and out is restricted. Think of a manhole or a single small hatch on a tank. And third, it's just not designed for people to be in there all the time, like an office. If a space checks all 3 of those boxes, boom, you're dealing with a confined space.
But wait, there's another crucial layer here. See, not all confined spaces are created equal. You have your standard issue confined space, which just meets that basic 3-point definition. But then you have the Permit-Required Confined Space, or a PRCS, and this is the one you really have to watch out for. This is a space that doesn't just meet the definition, it also has at least one serious, known hazard inside.
So what flips that switch? What makes a space permit-required? Well, it's got to have one of 4 things. A hazardous atmosphere, toxic gas, not enough oxygen. It could have something inside that could swallow you up, like grain in a silo. The inside could be shaped like a funnel that could trap you. Or it could just have any other serious hazard, like live wires or unguarded machinery.
And all those hazards kind of fall into these main buckets you see here. And while they're all incredibly serious, you have to know that atmospheric hazards are the #1 killer, by a long shot. But you've also got the risk of engulfment, machines starting up out of nowhere, the physical shape of the space itself, and other stuff like falls or extreme heat.
Let's just focus on oxygen for a second. Think of it like Goldilocks. The air we're breathing right now is about 20.9% oxygen. That's just right. But in a confined space, if that level drops below 19.5%, your judgment gets cloudy, you lose coordination, you can pass out. But here's the twist most people don't know. Too much oxygen, over 23.5%, is also super dangerous. It creates an environment where things can catch fire and burn with terrifying speed.
And speaking of fire, you have to know about the LEL. That stands for Lower Explosive Limit. Basically, it's the smallest amount of a gas in the air that can go boom. The rule is simple. For anyone to go into a space, the level of any flammable gas has to be less than 10% of that limit. Anything more, and a single spark from a tool could be catastrophic.
Okay, so the dangers are clear, they're serious, and they're invisible. But these spaces are part of the job for so many people. So, how do you go in safely? It's not about being brave, it's about having a rock-solid playbook and sticking to it. No exceptions.
So here's a crucial piece of that playbook. You never, ever just go in. You test the air from the outside first, and the order you test in is non-negotiable. It's oxygen, then flammables, then toxics. OFT. Remember that.
Why that order? Well, a lot of gas meters need enough oxygen to even work right. You check for flammables next because, well, an explosion is the most immediate violent threat. And then you check for toxics. Following that sequence is a literal lifesaver.
And this is the entry permit. Now, I know it looks like just another piece of paperwork, another form to fill out, but it's not. As it says right there, this thing is a checklist for survival. It's the official record that proves you've done your homework. It documents the air testing results, the hazards you found, the steps you took to control them, and the names of every person on the team. It is the final green light that turns a dangerous space into a controlled work environment.
And getting that permit signed means all these critical steps have been taken. You've isolated the space with lockout/tagout, so no pipes can open or machines can start up. You've purged it, or you're ventilating it with fresh air to make sure the atmosphere is safe. You've put up barriers to keep cars or equipment from getting too close. And you've made sure everybody has the right personal protective gear. These aren't suggestions, they're the actions that make entry possible.
But all the procedures and all the equipment in the world, they're only part of the solution. The final, and honestly the most important line of defense, is the team. A coordinated group of trained people who know their roles inside and out and who trust each other with their lives.
I can't stress this enough. A safe entry is never, ever a solo mission. The whole idea that someone can just pop in for a second is exactly what gets people killed. It takes a team. And every single person on that team has a very specific, very critical job to do.
And here are the key players. You've got the authorized entrant. That's the person actually going inside. They know the hazards, they know how to use their gear, and they stay in constant communication. Then you have the attendant. This person stays outside, always. Their only job is to be the lifeline, to watch the entrant and to call for rescue if anything goes wrong. Their job is not to go in. Finally, the entry supervisor. They're the coach, the one in charge of the whole operation, making sure that permit is perfect before anyone goes in.
And what happens if something does go wrong? The first, best, and preferred plan is always non-entry rescue. This is simple and it's genius. The entrant wears a harness connected to a line. If there's trouble, the attendant can literally just winch them out, pulling them to safety without anyone else setting foot inside that hazardous space. This is how you directly attack that 60% statistic we started with. This is how you stop the rescuer from becoming the next victim.
Which brings us right back to the most important question of all. In a real emergency, when a coworker goes down, are you a rescuer or are you just the next victim? Your training, your plan, and your discipline are the only things that decide the answer. Without them, that instinct to help could be the last one you ever have. With them, you're a lifeline.